In this video, we're going to work through the first part of a set of queries that's intended to draw data out of the Gold Star database. This will allow us to see how the syntax works in practice and some of the other database concepts. So if you look at the exercises posted on Blackboard, we'll just start with number 1. So from the employee table, select all fields or columns for all employees. Sort the query in ascending order by last name. So there are two things here. First of all, we want to select all the fields. And secondly, we want to sort the query in ascending order by last name. So hopefully at this point, you've watched the conceptual information about how structured query language works. So these are all going to be select from where style queries. So we'll start with select. And we want to select everything. One of the things you can do if you want to select all of the fields is actually use the star character. So we'll say select star on the next line from then the table name, employee. And again, it's working this way because we have the gold star schema set as the default. And we don't have a where clause here because we don't have any constraints. We just want to select everything from the employee table. So let's run this query the way it is right now. I'll hit the execute button and you can see that it retrieves all of the records we just put into the database, and it shows you all of the field names, including the primary key and the foreign keys as well. You can see that some employees haven't received a performance rating yet, and that's perfectly fine. That field is allowed to be null. But the last thing we want to do is sort the query in ascending order by last name. So we'll add to the statement, select from, and then we'll say order by. Ascending is the default, so if we just say last name, that should be enough to reorder it. Let's execute, and you can see that now it is in order by last name. If you want to sort it descending, all you have to do is add DESC at the end of the order by statement, and you'll see that the order flips around. You can specify ASC for ascending, but the default is ascending, so you don't have to include it. All right, so I've provided all of the query solutions to you, but I do suggest going through them like this by yourself first. So from here, what I'm going to do is leave the queries that we've already performed here, but I'm going to comment them out so they don't get executed each time. So I'll do that by including the /* and then the * at the end. So the next query, from the employee table, select only the first and last names and salary of all employees. So here we're not selecting everything. We want to select a few specific fields, but it will start the same way. So we have select, and then I'm going to list off in the order that's specified the fields. So first name, comma, last name, and salary, and that is from the employee table. We don't yet have a where clause. The where clause is going to specify specific constraints that we want. We don't have any yet. We just want all of the employees, their first name, last name, and salary. So from here we'll execute, and you'll see that the results we get are the first, last name, and salary in that order. So I'm going to move my comment down so that we can write yet another query and have it execute. Number 3, select employees who received a poor performance rating. So here we are specifying we want employees with a poor performance rating, and the results show only the first and last names of the employees. So we'll start the same way, select. What do we want to select? Well, that's what we want to display, the first and the last names of the employees. So we'll select the first name, the last name. Where are we pulling the data from? We're pulling it from the employee table, so from employee. And now we do have a where clause. We want those that received a poor performance rating. So in our where clause, we'll say where performance equals poor. And so for performance, I have the backtick. For poor, I have the quotes because that is a string. Let's execute that. And you'll see that it does return just the first and last name of the employee that has a poor performance. If you want to double check the work that we're doing, since it is a small environment, we can have a separate query that selects everything. And sure enough, we look in the table, we can see that Marietta Brown is the only person with a poor performance rating. All right, let's continue to move our comment down, and I'll add some additional lines. So number 4, show the first and last name only of employees who received a good performance rating and earn more than $50,000. So here we have a couple of things going on. It's the first time we're seeing the need for an and statement. So we'll start the same way though. Select, we want to show the first and last name only. So first name, last name from the employee table. And we have a where clause, so where the performance is equal to good and they are earning more than $50,000. So here the temptation is to say something like greater than 50,000, but what we need to do is actually include the field of interest. So we have to say, and salary is greater than 50,000. Let's test the query. We execute and we see we get a list of employees. If we want to be sure, we can look at our employee table and just do a quick check. Harold Foster should be on there, and he is. All right, so here you can see with things that are numeric, we can use these operators. So anything like greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, or equal to. All right, I'm gonna move my comment down and we can work on the next query. So number 5, from the employee table, select the social security number, first and last names, and performance rating of all employees who work at location 1. So we'll say select social security number, first name, last name, and performance from, we only still have the employee table. Even though we have location, we can take the location ID directly from the employee table. Where, and we want to specify that the location ID is location ID 1. So we'll say where location ID is equal to 1. Let's test it. And you see we get a list of employees. We could double check to make sure we have a location ID of 1 on Sandy Adams, and there she is. All right, I'm going to comment this out and move down to the next query. Number 6, select records for employees who have either Emily or Frank as their first name. Show the first and last name of these employees as well as their salary. So we'll start with select again. We want to select the first name, the last name, and their salary. We're only again dealing with the employee table. And our where clause, we're going to see that they either have Frank or Emily as their first name. So we'll have where first name equals Emily, or, and it's tempting to say or Frank, but what we need to do is every time we have an or an and statement, we have to have a complete clause. So something like a field name equals a value. So here we'll include first name equals Frank. Now if we run this, you'll see that we get 2 Emilys and 1 Frank. All right, I'm going to move the comment down one more time. And our last select query, we want to select employees with the first name of Holly that also received a good performance rating. And in the same query, we want to select all employees who received an average performance rating. So in other words, there might be a Holly in there that has an average rating. We don't want that Holly. We just want the Hollys with a good performance, and then any employee that isn't named Holly that received an average performance rating. We're going to display the social security number and the first and last names in the results. So here we have select social security number, first name, last name. From, we just have the employee table. And our where clause, we need to specify a few things. So where first name equals Holly and performance equals good. Now let's work through this in stages. So I'm actually going to execute this, and we say we get one Holly. So Holly Jones. So there's a Holly with a good performance rating. But we also need all employees who received an average performance rating. So what we're going to do is add to this. Let's see what happens if we first just say or performance equals average. So let's execute this first. One of the things that you'll have to get used to is every time you have an and statement, those two clauses are going to be inseparable. Similar to an order of operations, when you multiply, the multiplication comes before addition. It's the same with ands and ors. So regardless if we flip these two statements around, the or and the and, it's going to be a combination of Holly and good, or performance equals average. We'll see a couple of different examples with and or, so you'll get a better understanding of what I mean. So let's comment this out. I've actually included an additional query, even though it's not displayed on the screen here. It's something that I wanted to add. And this last one, what we like are employees whose last name starts with A or their last name starts with M, and they make $75,000 or more. So let's break this down. We'll start with select again. We want their social security number, their first name, and their last name. We're only dealing with the employee table. So from employee, where. Now let's build the where clause. So we have where their last name starts with A or it starts with M. So this is some new keyword here. We have where last name like, and then we'll build the string. So instead of using the equal sign, if we say equals A, we'll end up with nothing because nobody has a last name equal to A. What we want to use is a wildcard character. So if we say like, we'll start it off with A, and we're going to use the percent sign, which is the wildcard character, which indicates that anything can go there. Actually, just as a demonstration, let's only use the percent sign and execute and see what happens. So here you'll see that by using like percent, the percent represented any string that could go in there. So it pulled up every single person in the table. If I include A and then the percent sign, let's run it again, you'll see that it actually brings up only the person whose last name starts with A. The full name is Adams, but you'll see that the DAMS part doesn't matter. The percent sign just took care of that. We can also include the percent sign in front, and you'll see that that would indicate anything and that the last name ends with A. But what we want is last name starts with A. So last name like A%. And we also want those employees whose last name starts with M. Now it's tempting to use and here, but let's test that and see what happens. So and, we're going to say and last name like M%. And think about what we might get here. I'm going to execute it, and you'll see that nothing comes up. Nothing comes up because we can't have a case where the last name both simultaneously starts with A and with M. So what we need to do is use or instead of and. Or acts like addition. So if we say the last name is like A% or it's like M%, we'll end up with both those employees that have a last name that starts with A and that have a last name that starts with M. But we're not quite finished. We also want these groups that make $75,000 or more. So here's where the ands and ors get a little bit interesting. We want to first add the constraint, and then we'll see what happens. So we want the last name to start with A or M, and also we want the salary to be greater than or equal to $75,000. Let's run this and see what happens. We get two people. Now, this is where I like to interject that when you're writing code, the code will always do what you tell it to do, but it might not do what you want it to do. So you really have to be sure that you're telling it what you want so that it does what you want. So here, what I was saying about ors and ands is that the ands will hold together. So this statement as it stands, we have it broken up into two parts. The statement actually reads where last name starts with A, or because the and statement is here, it's as though we have this grouped together. So we're saying this condition or this condition. So where last name is like A% or last name is like M% and salary is greater than or equal to 75,000. What we want to do to apply the and statement to both parts of the or clause is the following. We want to actually group the two parts of the or in parentheses. So now if we read it, we're saying we want both the groups where the last name starts with A or the last name starts with M, and then we're applying this and salary is greater than or equal to 75,000 to both of them. So if we run this again, you'll see that the effect is different. We only get one employee who both has a last name that falls into this category and has a salary that's greater than or equal to 75,000. So in this lesson, we've seen how to select all fields from a table. We've seen how to use a where clause to set things equal to a string, to set things greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to, and so on for integers or numeric types, decimals. We've also seen how to use the like statement as well as do multiple conditions like or and how to group those together. So the next thing we're going to tackle are those joins. So what happens if we want to pull data from multiple tables, or for example, pull an employee's city information where they work? So that's what we're going to do next time.